New York Times, an alliance of autocracies. China wants to lead a new world order. Subtitle, as President Biden predicts a struggle between democracies and their opponents, Beijing is eager to champion the other side.
Our number one threat, China and Iran, have joined together to take a stand not only against America, but against American influence throughout the Middle East.
This is a new announcement by China and Iran, a deal that China has brokered unilaterally with Iran. It's $400 billion over 25 years aimed at infrastructure, but it's also a deal to buy Iranian oil.
The Chinese government, again, the Chinese Communist Party, to be clear, making a play for dominance now in the Middle East.
Even going so far as to say that they would host negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians.
The military alliance here also makes me a bit nervous. I want Rick's comment on that too, but just the idea of because where we've been in other parts of the world, especially in Africa, Chinese influence is huge.
A part of this agreement with Iran and China states that starting now, they will begin military cooperation with each other that includes, Jay, joint training, research, weapons development, and also intelligence sharing.
There's a piece of good news here, though, I want to highlight, in that now that China has come out completely in line with the Iranian regime, there are a whole bunch of Arab allies of the United States who see this as a terrible thing. And I think it's going to cause Arab allies to question whether or not they should be doing any business with China.
China is looking to make it more difficult, actually, for the Biden administration to do what they would like to do, which is to get back in with a deal with Iran. And how weak will the U.S. appear if it bows down to the Iranian and now Chinese demand that all sanctions must be lifted?
It's almost like they think that the United States is weakened right now and that they can stand up and say really outrageous statements, cut outrageous deals, and get away with it.
The next schedule for the Chinese foreign minister this week for his trips is to go to the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, those countries, because they, I'm sure, are very, very unhappy with this agreement, because it is really, truly, this word is overused, but it is an existential threat. China and Iran are now together against these nations.
We have to be very clear about what this deal between China and Iran means. It means that China is going to be funding terrorism.
These funds are supposed to be going towards technology, infrastructure, and what have you. But we all know that Iran has a bad past record of how they use funds that were designated for something else.
There's a secondary part of this, which is secondary sanctions. Also is the idea that you're not supposed to be able to purchase this Iranian oil or trade in the Iranian oil, but is anyone going to step up and enforce those sanctions on China?
No one's going to step up, because they're trying to get us to even drop the original sanctions.
You take this agreement and you combine it with President Biden's apparent weakening of Trump policies on the Middle East, it has large ramifications, combined with the fact, that it is President Biden himself who has expressed this almost completely illogical desire to negotiate with Iran and re-enter the Iran nuclear deal almost at any cost.
I cannot believe that the Chinese government would have done this if you and the previous administration were still in power, because the risk factor with the U.S. would be so great. But here, like you said, the desire to engage is so paramount to the Biden administration that I'm sure the Chinese made the calculus and said they're not going to do anything. They're not going to say, hey, gee, you're giving them $400 billion. That might impact the sanctions we've had on them.
I'm concerned that for Joe Biden, engagement is the goal. Having a meeting is the goal. They keep celebrating the idea that we're going to sit down and talk. That doesn't produce anything. That's a tactic to get us somewhere. But the big meat of the discussion is, what are you going to do when you sit at the table, and how are you going to get the Chinese to back down and not be funding terrorism?
A new play by China to assert its power on the global stage. And again, to me, it backs up what we heard from President Biden in his first press conference, was that China expressed to him very clearly that they were making a play to become the world's superpower.